So there's
Where where are you? Are you
I'm I'm in my hotel room in Playa.
mm-hmm.
So there's something of a dark night of the soul going on for you, and in order to stay abreast of that, you've got to stay in your authenticity, and out of the story. So what I'd like you to do right now is, sit down if you're not sitting down, and close your eyes, and then just feel your heart. Just
Okay.
just put your consciousness there and feel what you feel. Mine hurts and it's blocked.
Mm.
But if you put your attention on your heart, it only takes a few minutes for there to be an opening there. And in that opening, when you feel the first wave of relief after you've been sitting consciously in your heart long enough, when you feel that opening, go ahead and be in that opening and put your attention on noticing gratitude. And feel that gratitude radiating through every channel of your heart. And the radiance that results from allowing that gratitude to be your experience, that instead of pain and suffering, you're abiding in gratitude. So what I'd like to do is for us to understand that on an experiential level. And so let's close our eyes again.
Okay.
Put your consciousness focused in your heart. Not trying to do anything, you're just there. You're just present. That's your only job, is just to be there and be present. Conscious and present, and focused on the experience of the moment. If it's not of this moment physically for you, in your vicinity, or on your connections of things that you have to deal with, let go of all of the old stuff, especially everything that happened to you when you were a child. And I for sure was a child into my 20s. So just be a child, sit in your heart. You know how children are when they're so excited they can go out and play, go to the park and run and kick a ball. The joy of just being alive and being in a body that can get so excited and have so much fun with just being in a moment of play. Well, what moments do we have? Why isn't our moment of now a moment of play? Why is it a moment of shared suffering instead? How grateful do we have to allow ourselves to be in order to get back to playing properly? Beautifully, joyfully playing life. Who would you have to be? What would it be like to be you that's joyfully playing life? It's just, wow. You're so glad to be here. Yeah, notice how much more open your heart is. You don't really have to try too hard to sit there and experiencing your heart right now, because there's flashes of pleasure from opening, moving through your limitations, and realizing that it was just a temporary experience that you were passing through, and for whatever reasons, it doesn't matter now. You experienced it as that kind of a limitation, and now you're here. And who are you? Who are you here to be? Check and see if you're on course. Check with your before birth self and say, hey, how am I doing? Is this what you had planned for me? It's not the totality, no. It's perfect, of course, just as it is, but the reason for asking that question is for us to determine whether or not we're willing to open and actually transform and transcend the conditions that we've been in. How conscious do we have to be freely present in our bodies? You have to allow all of those traumas. It's just those achy remembrances of a difficult life. You have to feel them. Instead of being like a sword or a spear stuck in you forever, feel that blade go through once. Then it's out again. And what happens? You're still here. Even though you've been run through with a blade, you don't have those spears and arrows and swords sticking out of you energetically as the construct of who you are. And so how the universe has to treat you, because how is the being supposed to be that's got a dozen different enemy projectiles piercing them energetically, in their auras and their subconscious? There's only one thing that you can say for sure is you really went unconscious. For you to shift down to a beingness that can fail like that in life. We've really journeyed really far from our truth. And we have to take stock of that. You know, we have to admit that to us in our experience of self, you know, because if we're lying to ourselves about how good we're doing, when the reality is we haven't known ourselves yet as a radiating glow of unconditional love and divine grace. Come on. I mean, there's been some moments, yeah. But has the transformation ever really taken root? You know, is it like a program that goes on each night when we meditate? And there's something more real than that that we keep falling back to? Where you're in trauma is where you've been unwilling to awaken divinely there. And that's what has to occur. And we know where to do that based upon the contractions, the pain, the suffering, the everything that makes it uncomfortable physically and energetically for you here. That's what we open into and embrace. And it's got to include all your enemies too. All your friends automatically, of course. But it's everyone. When you experience the divinity of your own nature, of your own self, you'll experience the divinity of everyone else's too. Then you can stabilize yourself that way by having that opening and that transcendence. And then just keep moving as that in each moment. Have that be the focus of what your task is. Now, if you have to try to be it, or you're really it, well, no. You're validating an aspect of yourself that's, you know, trying to be right in your wrongness, you know. You've got a bunch of problems, you don't know what to do about them, and there's worry. I have it for my own self, you know. My decisions have been shit in a lot of ways. But if I don't confront the contextual reality of who I am, if I try to escape it by experiencing a divine one that's separate from the mess that I'm in, then it's not really real. Because each one of us is in a unique experience of the state of being that I'm in, you know. We're not all sharing the same reality. We each have our own. But what we share in common is that we're playing a game that we're so far from our truth that we can't even remember if we ever had a truth that was good. You know, we even doubt the existence of anything other than, you know, life is suffering. Now, a lot of traditions, you know, have accepted that, you know. I think it's the Buddhist thing to accept that life is suffering. And I think what that is the first step. You know, because if you're suffering, You're suffering because you haven't accepted the fact that it's okay for you to suffer. You know, you're trying not to. But if there is suffering for you, it's what's supposed to be happening. And if you just let it happen and don't hold on to it or try to push it away, it'll flow right through. You know, it'll rise and fall in a natural progression that is over before you know it. But then you'll own your truth as your experience in the moment. And that's why we're having this conversation. You know, feel that gratitude in your heart. Notice that there is a light and a radiance in your own heart. And as you notice that, as you sit in that experience of an inner radiance that awakens you. It's your own radiance that awakens you, of course. Now, the fact that somebody could believe that your radiance would somehow be diminishing somebody else's that you should be worshiping instead of accepting the fact that he said you could do better than he did, and so you're willingly experiencing what he willingly experienced for himself. And that's a tough thing to do when you have no examples around of somebody willing to and experiencing the totality of their infinite self and eternal nature without there being any other identity in the body. No stories, no identities. Look how many identities that you can feel in your body. How do you even count them all? But let all the past ones go, especially the ones that make you feel bad. You know, just feel them so you can identify them and give them one last hug goodbye and let them go. Let them rise to their own potential. Yeah, everything that you're suffering about, that you're suffering for, let everybody connected to that rise to their potential, to the realization of their truth. The truth that reconfigures all the contextual realities of your life. And that's the you that's sublime. What happens to you as you willingly open to experience something sublime as your experience of you? You know, try it on right now. Close your eyes, go within, and open up into experiencing the sublime being you. It's okay to do it. What happens when the sublime is being you? What happens to the experience of you? Because you can't exist as a disabled victim story in the presence of a self-aware, sublimely wise consciousness. You can't be around that without being that. As soon as you accept it in yourself or see it in someone else, then the other half fills up for you, and then you see the reality is divinely manifest, and in sync with your consciousness that now you can't find the end of. There's nowhere anyone can go that your consciousness isn't there. Because you're conscious on every level, in every dimension, in every sector of the universe. All of that information channels into your experience of the body, and you have infinite knowledge coming into you from your connections with everyone else. And the cream rises to the top. And that cream is yours, the best of the best. Because if it truly is the best of the best, then what would that be? That would be somebody who was true to himself and true to everybody else at the same time. Where his life was a blessing to himself and a blessing to others at the same time. And so, is that something you're willing to experience yourself as? Feel it. Feel how much has to change. Well, it's, there's so much change necessary for that to be realized as you. But there's no reason not to realize it, even if it's a lot of change. What else are you here to do except to realize the truth? To see it, to be it, to know it, to understand it. And to be okay with not knowing as well. You're okay with the game of life. You're not trying to end it. And you're not trying to promote it. You're just here, conscious sublimely. And sit in that. Sit in your gratitude. Sit in your grace. As you sit in your grace, everything that's been poisoning you from the inside, that can't hold on to the nature of its reality anymore. And everything dissipates in numerous ways, but together as a movement of liberation. For yourself, from you to others, from others to others, and then from others to you, and you to yourself, everybody okay with the freedom of the other. Don't be the one weak link in that. Because if you'll stop pretending that you're the actor and the critic and the judge, jury, and executioner all at the same time, if you'll just take responsibility right now for your experience of you being what it is. This is your creation. And as you take responsibility for this being your creation, the results of your life, yeah, you can begin to let go of that pain. And in your letting go of that, it's like your body is expanding. That your energetic being is, starting to glow. And within your experience of your body, everything's opening and spinning and dissolving. Opening, in the most beautiful way into your experiencing a sublime consciousness as you. All of your oppositional reality fades away. So what does it feel like to awaken divinely? I know that's asking for a lot, but again, when they're going to crucify Jesus, he says, do not your scriptures say that ye are all gods? Each person gets to decide their own purpose, but it seems to me that since you're connected to me, that we must share a similar purpose, and that is to open and stay in that opening until there's nothing but the free flow of universal, unconditional love. And that's an infinite leap from judgment and damnation, Being lost and unconscious, confused and in a state of not knowing. So not knowing that people that you could instantly see were unconscious were feeding you a map of reality that you bought. Knowing they were unconscious, knowing that you knew that they didn't know. And yet you're buying their reality and choosing that as your operating reality for yourself. Just because someone else is not being the truth of themselves doesn't mean that you have to match their reality in order to be in communication with them. You can stay yourself and give them the grace of being the one that makes a choice for things to be better for them. You don't force it on them. But if you're being your truth, then it can't be very much interaction with you until somebody else decides to experience theirs. Because there's with somebody who's embraced her truth and allowed it to change her and rebirth her. So what truth would rebirth you? What truth would fulfill the dreams of all of your ancestors? What would encompass it all? The consciousness of each moment is on experiencing everything that's going on in you and letting it go at the same time, in full experience of it and in full surrender at the same time. Allowing the divine to be what you're experiencing. Even in the midst of that darkness and pain and limitations, whatever that suffering is, it ends by you experiencing God in the middle of it. God, the goddess, whatever. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, does that infinite potential that Buddha and Jesus both said that you are, do you allow yourself to know yourself as that right now? Are you going to say no to Jesus and no to Buddha and no to Krishna? No to every being that ever awakened and said, guess what? All you have to do is notice my consciousness and try to find the end of it. So whoever your favorite deity is, encompass all of their consciousness until you know them completely. And in order to begin to accomplish doing that, that amount of consciousness for you transcends you from who you began that exercise as and into the expression of beingness of the successful result that you were hoping for. And it's not for you to compare anything with anything, but when you have an awakening, let everything else go. It doesn't matter anymore. Stay in your awakening and deal with your circumstances from there. Yeah, and allow your body and your subconscious to feel how real this is for you, so that it understands. Who you're choosing to be in this life. Do it for long enough for the universe to understand and support you as that. Yeah, exist is the truth of you that fulfills all your desires. And stay in your beingness of that. Until the universe says, okay, I get it now. You're this now. Okay, now feel how that stabilized your consciousness and your reality when the universe reflected it back to you. But it's got to be your momentary experience of yourself, and you have to carry it for long enough for the universe to recognize it. Because even though it's seemingly instant, it's apparently not exactly instant. You have to demonstrate to the universe that you're stabilized as this. And you have to allow all those other influences to go away because they're irrelevant. Yeah, there's no one stopping you or me from knowing our truth here. Our eternal truth, our universal truth. Our truth that extends beyond creation. Because that's where we're truly free and truly conscious, is that which exists before creation. Because once creation exists, then consciousness has to identify as part of it. Until it can figure out how to notice the divine that's obviously within everything here. To notice that within himself or herself. So what is it like to be fully present with yourself? Where you're not hiding anything about you from you? What does it feel like to notice God in every aspect of that creation of you? The God consciousness permeates all of that polarized consciousness. Shares the same time, the same space. So it's like yin and yang on a microscopic level, where there's trillions, like every cell of your body is another yin and yang. And you're one or the other. And you're in a divine dance with the other. And both you and the other have chosen to awaken. So how willing are you to experience your awakening right now? So if creator consciousness permeates the universe, including your body, and that creator consciousness is infinite, eternal, and life supporting and loving, that's what you should be noticing. Because it's there. There's more there of that than there is of anything else. Now, if you shift up through levels of beingness, and just popping from one to another to another to another, a little bit confused because you can't even remember who or what you are. All you know is you're going through a dramatic, continuous shift and change. But don't try to stabilize it yet. Let it all transmute first. You don't want to stabilize the polarities. You want to stabilize your oneness, your experience of the all, the infinite self. And your oneness with everything else. And why that's been so painful, I don't know, but it's getting better. Because I'm actually opening and experiencing it now. Willingness to actually experience freedom. And each time you go completely unconscious and awake again and find things in a flow state, just say, yes, more, please. You don't have a direct connection with what's been going on. All you know is that it's transformative and that you're reawakening into it again. So let yourself experience that right now. You're reopening from unconsciousness into an absolute freedom of self-expression. And as these layers of layers of layers of layers release from you, and again, keep dropping you into other layers of consciousness where you instantly forget what's going on again. Just stay in the fact that you know that you're open and that you're staying in the free flow. You're open and you're in the free flow. That's your choice. And if there's a big smoke screen in the here and now, well, that's where you are. You're here and now. And you're in the flow. You're one with everything. And I think that's what finally changes it. That experience truth of the fact that you are actually one with everything. Everything else is you too. your judgment of any aspect of it is you're judging yourself and keeping your story in the paradoxically uncomfortable one that it's in. There's no defining you and you staying free. As soon as you let others define you, and agree with their description of who and what you are, now you've created a new story and embedded your consciousness in it, and you're believing that that's real and true. And what could you be experiencing instead? Yeah, what could you be experiencing instead of this? What's available to you if you stay in your opening? If you stay in your free flow? How does the universe open for you when you're open to it? Yeah, every part of you exposed. Nothing hidden. Nothing in you choosing deception. And wherever you find that in yourself, that's the next thing that transmutes and transcends. There's no such thing as an outside limitation on you. All limitations come from your choice of who you're being here. So choose. Choose to be authentically you in a eternal and universal way. Whatever it is authentically you, it's that. Be that. And just let it happen. Because why would you hold on to a painful reality? Just because you know what it is, and so you're comfortable with it. It's time for you to know what it is to be healed. to be remembered, to be restored. To be experiencing your wholeness. What is wholeness and what does it feel like? I guess that should be the next painting I do for you. What is wholeness and what does it feel like?
Mm.
I mean, apparently you're still serving somewhat as my muse. So as soon as I can, I'm going to set up and continue painting. So just notice that it's pretty easy to experience what I've been talking about. You're present in your heart, you're noticing your radiance, noticing your gratitude, noticing your love.